Let me thank you, Congressman Weber, for holding this special order, your leadership on this issue, and my condolences to the people in your district. I know Beaumont particularly was hit the hardest. It was all, we were hit hard all around, but I know Beaumont was hit very hard, and that's why we need to pass a supplemental in October to help the great people of the great state of Texas. I'm chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. One of my responsibilities is overseeing the response efforts of FEMA, federal, state, and local to see is this working or not. I've seen what happened in Katrina and Rita and other disasters. I can tell you this was the most impressive response effort, federal, state, and local. I commend the president for signing an advanced declaration disaster at the request of my governor, Governor Abbott, who mobilized. This enabled us to mobilize in advance and pre-position assets to have, I think, one of the best response I've seen in one of the most tragic storms that Texas has ever weathered. By way of history, personally, my grandfather survived the 1900 Galveston hurricane. They rescued him from a treetop. He was 8 years old. 10,000 people were killed in that tragic event. In this case, we saved almost 20,000 lives, thanks to the good work of the people in this picture that I had the great privilege to see right after the storm hit. It was one of the most compassionate humanitarian responses I think I've ever witnessed. This particular photo really, I think, captured what Houston looked like at the time. First floor underwater. It almost looks like the Iwo Jima of Harvey. You know, you got DPS, Department of Public Safety, the American flag, a Marine, Coast Guard, and National Guard. These people came together, but you know who else came together? You talk about the Cajun Navy. Came together from Louisiana to help Texans. And a lot of Texans saved Texans in this storm, but to see that process was really a shining light in a very dark time. There's so many untold stories of heroic bravery that took place. I call it Operation Dunkirk. Many of us read about that battle, but many of us have seen the movie of all the private boats that came out to save the British in that event, in that battle. We saw hundreds of private boats coming out, working in unison with federal, state, and local responders, saving lives. Again, 20,000 lives saved in the process. And this next, this is Katy High School. Katy's in my district. And it became really, and who would think that, you know, this high school would be the forward operating base for the Texas Guard and the active duty service members and all the first responders. This was where they launched their efforts to the Beaumont area after they took care of all the crises and the flooding in the Houston area. I saw these guys going out in boats and helicopters and saving lives. This is the best side of mankind and one of the darkest chapters that our state has really seen. I had the opportunity to bring the speaker down, Chairman Schuster of Transportation Infrastructure, to look at this. Remarkable story and again, a really awful time, but we saw the resiliency of Texans helping other Texans, but I also want to credit the entire nation for responding in a very compassionate way. I went to the shelters and the churches and I saw all the food coming in and people calling me from other states. What can I do to help? The firefighters I saw coming from Nebraska and Pennsylvania and Ohio, all converging on the state. And indeed, the eyes of the nation were on the state of Texas during this devastating hurricane that continued to rain for days. And lastly, I know my time is limited, but I do want to talk about what we can do moving forward. This is a 1940 map, flood control plan that was built by the Conservation Engineer Corps under President Roosevelt back in the 40s. And you see here, both the Addicks and Barker reservoirs that were built in the 1940s, and this is the Buffalo Bayou, and this is downtown Houston, but they had another plan at that time, and it was on the Cypress Creek. And that's in my district, and the Cadies where these guys were. This is where it all started. This is the third flood in 2 years in this area, all starting at the Cypress Creek. This is all developed now. It's not rice fields anymore. And it was a watershed event into these reservoirs that then had a controlled release at 1 o'clock in the morning into these neighborhoods below, flooding the Buffalo Bayou and then flooding Houston. This is the kind of stuff, Congressman, that we need to look, as we look at the supplemental and other projects, this is the prevention that I think we can be doing in the Congress that makes a lot of sense to provide infrastructure at key points to stop this flooding from ever happening again. I know as Texans, we're all going to come together as a delegation, but I know I think this entire Congress will come together to not only save lives as we did, help with the FEMA assistance to get people back up on their feet, but then do smart projects like this one to stop this kind of flooding from ever happening. Again, that's smart prevention that at the end of the day is going to save money and save human lives, in the process. And in closing, I just want to say that I've never been prouder to call myself a Texan. Seen a lot. It's my 7th term. Judge Poe and I came in together. We've seen a lot in the 7 terms we've been in Congress. I've never seen our state rally like this at a time of need and the nation rallying behind the state of Texas. And I want to thank all those who made it possible in our great state and also in our great country, the United States of America.